in a way, Dr. Shakti does not need an introduction to Amrita, but let me just say he um, got his bachelor's degree at IIT Madras um, and his PhD at the University of Texas at Austin in computer science. He worked with a very renowned computer scientist, Robert Boyer, who was famous for the Boyer-Moore theorem prover in those days. Subsequently, he took up positions in industry in the Silicon Valley. He was at McAfee for many years. It was at that time that he taught a series of courses for Amrita in security, database security, wireless security, network security, and at the early stages of Amrita's, you know, the Amrita University starting, and so is known to many people for that reason. Um, I won't take more of his time, but I let him, give the background that led him from security to talking about agentic AI for special needs, and there's a personal side to it also. And over to you, Sakti. Take it from here.
Thank you, Bharat. I mean, this is basically a proposal, as it says. This is the project that we actually. The idea came in December 2024, when even before agentic AI was in vogue. At that time, LLMs were the only ones out there, right? So we discussed this basically in September 2024. At that time, it looked like it required a big team to implement it, and so we kind of backed off. We didn't, at least I didn't know how to go about it. We did apply for some grants and so on, but never went anywhere. But now it looks like the technology has caught up, and we can actually implement this prototype even with a small team and with AI vibe coding and stuff like that. So this project has been revived, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So let me start with the overview of the talk, right? So basically, in the US, well, this is one thing I've had a hard time with Zoom. How do I move this? I keep moving this thumbnail of photos of video, right? Anyway, it's fine now. So in the US, the government provides a ton of services for special needs people, right? Special needs individuals means folks who have some disability, that developmental disability. They may be intellectual, physical, social, behavioral, etc. And so these people are given funding, etc., by the U.S. government, both at the state and the federal level. Okay, so but the information about these types of services extremely hard to obtain, right? I mean, so it's in the internet 1.0. Prior to AI, we use those techniques, right? Email, text, word of mouth, attend seminars, and so on. So to find out what is out there is extremely difficult. So naturally, with the advent of AI, our solution is, hey, why not build a user-friendly AI agentic app? So when we say agentic, it also it can act on behalf of the user, and informs. It gives any kind of information, and it's very user-friendly. It's completely voice-based transaction interaction with the client, and it keeps the context of the client throughout the life. You don't have to remind the agent what you told it yesterday. So it keeps track of your age, and what services are available at every stage of a client's life, and it will proactively, notify the client about impending services or canceled services or any other event that is of importance to the special needs person. Okay, so I mean, of course, right now you can use available agentic AI apps also, right? Like you can use a Gemini or Chat GPT and so on. I will, I will talk about how our solution is different from the others. So this app is not just for the end client. It can also be used by caregivers. When I say caregiver, a caregiver can actually manage multiple clients, right? So it can be a caregiver, a service provider. These are the folks who are vendors of services like speech therapy or behavioral therapy. That's ABA. There's a ton of different kinds of services provided for these special needs individuals. And there's somebody called the service coordinator. They belong to the government-run or organizations, not government-run, but government-sponsored organizations that actually coordinate or connect clients with the service providers. So I'll discuss I'll talk more about the background information, etc. And the first iteration, so for this talk and for this project, we'll just focus on services in California. But of course, the architecture is easily extended to other states and also other applications, right?
Shakti, are you
Yes.
moving this? Are you moving your slides? But we are still on
Oh,
your title.
really?
We
I
are.
think you.
I am still on your title slide.
Oh, sorry, Shreya. I am actually. So maybe I see something called your screen sharing is paused on top. I don't think I paused it.
Oh,
Perhaps you
oh,
paused it.
my screen sharing is. I pause screen sharing. Um,
I should have
uh,
noticed it earlier, but let me.
what are others seeing the
Yeah,
slides?
we are also seeing only the first slide. I
Oh, I'm
think
sorry.
it's not a slideshow. I said we can see the application
You're
and
not on the slideshow. You're
No,
on.
no, I'm on the slideshow on my laptop.
But
But
not
but
for
it looks like
us.
you paused the screen sharing. That's what it looks like. Or did I pause it?
Oh, let's see. Share.
Recording on this computer. No, I think you paused it.
I have posted.
Yeah. Or I can stop share and start share again. Shall I do that?
Please. Yeah.
Let me do that. Oh, sorry. I mean, I was going bullet point by bullet point in my overview slide. That was the.
I thought that something was not okay because, but I
let,
tell you, I didn't.
let me share once
I'm
again.
somewhat naive at all these things, but um,
Now,
I
now I
didn't.
started sharing once again. Are you seeing the new slide? You probably
Yes,
are.
I'm on the overview slide. You're on the
Okay, so
overview.
let me restart. Okay, I'll restart the talk more or less,
Maybe
right?
you can
So
just put it on your screen, full screen,
yeah, I
and
will go
then
to screen share mode now.
yeah, okay, there you're on the full screen now. Slideshow. Okay, click that.
Okay, so I was
Okay,
actually this is the starting slide, right?
okay. So now we are seeing the full slideshow.
Title slide, right?
yes, yes,
Now, do you
Okay,
see the next slide, overview slide?
overview. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Oh, okay, okay. So that was the reason it was paused for whatever reason.
Okay.
Okay. So, okay, let me start. So basically, I was going bullet by bullet in the slide. Now, do you see the first bullet now?
Yes, yes. U.S. government.
Okay. So basically, the US government is sponsoring these services, right? As I mentioned, speech therapy, employment training for the special needs individuals who are essentially people with developmental disabilities that prevent them from doing, going on with their daily life without assistance, right? For the most part, there are some high-end, high functional special needs individuals who are practically independent, but we are focusing on those who need considerable assistance, right? And there is support, both financial, and all kinds of support at the state and federal level, right? And as I mentioned, information about these services very hard to find. People go to websites, seminars, word of mouth, etc. And our solution is build an agentic AI app. You're seeing bullet by bullet, right now?
Yes. Now it's good.
Okay,
Now it's good.
okay. Okay, that both informs, that is, you can ask for information as well as it can act on behalf of the client. Do you want me to set up an appointment, doctor's appointment, send an email, whatever it is, right? So that is the thing. And of course, the question that I was mentioning is people can ask, okay, how is it different from using Chat GPT directly or Gemini directly? And I'm going to talk about it. There are different differences in the sense that, in brief, it is going to proactively notify the client, right? As the client's life evolves, it's going to keep the context of the client throughout the life and proactively inform about new services, canceled services. Government removes funding, a service goes away, you are still stuck with it, you don't know about it until somebody sends you an email. And remember, there are special needs individuals who are basically on their own. Some have parents giving care, but there are, on the lower end of the spectrum, there are people who are essentially on their own, living in group homes, and essentially pretty much taking care of themselves in the best way possible. So this app will also not just support the end client, but caregivers. I mentioned caregivers are people who care for many clients, or a service provider, that is somebody providing therapy, etc. They are contracted by government-sponsored organizations. We'll talk about that in the background section. And who appoint a service coordinator to coordinate services between the end client and caregivers, and end client and service providers. Okay, so this app is going to be a multi-role app as well. And for the first iteration, we'll just focus on services in California, simply because I'm most familiar with them. And it's pretty clear that the architecture can be extended to other states and applications. And when we expand to other states, we're going to have a different set of questions as well, right? I mean, what happens if I move from California to, say, Illinois, or whatever? How do my services? Can I continue my services? What should I do? And the app should be able to guide me through that process as well. So when we move from a single state to the multi-state, there's a new set of questions that come up as well. Okay, so this is the overview of the whole talk. So basically, the agenda is, a few slides on the background, so we are familiar with the terminology. Then I'll give you examples of how the app solves the problems, and we have the first prototype requirements, some technical approach slides, and our future roadmap. So background, right? So how do I move this? Okay, got it. So this is the types of special needs individuals and services, right? Just to give a idea of what kind of problem we are dealing with, right? So in California, the special needs funding, etc., is managed by the Department of Developmental Services, DDS. That's the acronym we will be using using from now onwards. And there are 500,000 clients, over 500,000 clients right now. Can you imagine? And they have a wide range of disabilities, intellectual disabilities, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, autism is a huge thing, right? It's a whole spectrum, ASD, and so on. So there's 500,000 clients all over California, right? And if you look at the website, now they list like 32 services, and for different age groups, infants, some services, children, youth, adults, and remember I talked about, as a child or the adult moves from one stage to another, services change, and today, it's mostly, you're either you talk to the service coordinator or other people to understand what new services are available, right? And that's where the app comes into play. And here are some examples of services: early start, therapeutic services, speech services, youth transition services. I mean, there's a whole lot of services, right? Employment services, because their goal is to help the special needs individuals lead independent and productive lives. And by the way, I think people can ask questions. I assume they can unmute and ask, right? So pretty informal. We can
Yeah.
ask
Right.
questions. If
Yeah.
any of this is clear, please feel
Yes.
free to
Yes.
ask questions.
There are that many people, but so please, keep it very quite informal.
Correct.
Yeah, you can just speak up and just ask. Yeah.
Sounds good. So this is the service delivery architecture, right? Briefly, how are the services provided to the clients? As I said, DDS, the department, is responsible for providing services, and what they do is they actually contract like 21 regional services, regional centers. These are non-profit organizations, independent non-profit organizations across California. So what is the regional center? It covers a section of California, some counties in California, right? So the 21 regional centers essentially cover various counties in California. They are responsible for providing services for individuals in that region that they are covering, right? And what do? They in turn vet vendors, right? They essentially contract it out to vendors. So if I'm a therapist of some kind, I go through a vendoring process with my regional center, and once I'm certified as a vendor, then I'm able to provide services to not just one client, but any number of clients depending on my capacity and so on. So they have the process for regular vetting of these vendors to make sure that they are following the policy and so on and so forth. So all these services are provided by multiple vendors, and these vendors are contracted by the regional center, and that's how the funding flows, right? And so when there's a client, was there a question? Okay. So somebody is a special needs individual. So what happens is you're assigned somebody called a service coordinator in your regional center, okay? So the service coordinator said, okay, you're a special needs individual. Let me evaluate you, find out the services, and I'll explain more in the next slide how the process is. And then they pick the services and then the vendors, and that's how the client is connected to the service providers. And eventually, the service providers are paid through the DDS via the regional center for these clients. So as I said, service consumption delivery, and I'm just focusing on adults here. what the regional center does is evaluate the eligibility, right? Now, do you really need special needs support? So they evaluate the individual, and if it passes evaluation, they create what is called an IEP. IEP means individualized educational program. I think that's for children. IPP is individualized program plan. Now I'm more familiar with the adult part. The IPP. So what these documents are is essentially listing out the traits of the individual, right? Oh, he has social issues. Even though he's 25 years old, he's intellectually at the level of a 7-year-old. He has behavioral issues. He doesn't talk or whatever. He's not aware of danger. So that through those traits, they understand what services are needed for that individual. And the service coordinator essentially works with the client to choose vendors for the approved services, and then they generate what is called a payment of services, purchase of services, which is like a paper document today. And I'm going through all this because it's a very manual process, right? And this they'll mail that paper document to the vendors and also to the clients. And once the service date starts, they will this client gets the service, and the vendors are able to bill the regional center for providing the services. And the regional center periodically monitors the services to see what progress the client is making. Again, this feedback is given today fairly manually. Scan it's taken a document which is scanned and saved and so on and so forth. And then you can adjust the services, right? If the client actually makes progress, you can move him to newer kinds of services. And you might even and this has to flow back into the IPP, so we know that the history of the client is maintained, and so on and so forth. And the reason I'm going through this is because this is a pretty manual process today: documents, paper documents, meetings, and so on and so forth. So that is the basic background slide. Okay, I mean, any questions? As we said, we can just stop me anytime and ask questions.
How do people feel about in California? Generally, what's your impression of how easy it is to obtain all of these services, find them and obtain them? People people manage it. They manage to
Yeah.
to go through all of this and obtain the what they want.
So there's a whole lot of support organizations that have cropped up, right, just for this. So there's something called Parents Helping Parents, a very famous or very well-known website. So there are many individual private organizations, Disability Voices Unlimited or something. They are. I mean, I know them now, but as a new person, usually it is a school that is the starting point. So and then from there, you don't even know what a regional service coordinator is, what a regional center is, or coordinator is. Even now, and even folks who have been who have been receiving services for a long time, I'm not sure they are entirely conversant with this architecture. Oh, I'm getting these services, fine, I move on. And it's almost need based, right? So that's how it is.
Okay.
So, but California is one of the states that provides a fantastic amount of services. So that's a good thing about California. So what are the special needs? What are the problems with the current ecosystem? And we'll discuss some of the problems that we kind of briefly touched upon. And we'll talk about how our app solves it as well, right?
So, the children in schools, through the school, they would find out, but
Yes, I mean, no,
adults,
no parent knows, right? I mean, what is autism? Now it is more well known, but you go to school, you put your kid in a kindergarten. In kindergarten, the kid is not functioning as you would expect. Then the teacher says, maybe you need to get him evaluated. You're still in denial, maybe, I mean, if it's an Indian parent, typically they're in denial. So so,
every parent,
I
yeah.
mean, I think I think people, non-Indian origin folks embrace evaluation, etc., a lot more easily. It's of course, it's a kind of stereotypical generalization. So, they evaluate, some of the folks evaluate children at the age of 3, I mean, that seems to be an age which is a little bit early, right? If some kid is not talking normal, usually they say, oh, let's wait, maybe a few years, everything will be fine. So it's not uncommon for somebody, especially boys in kindergarten, to be overactive or whatever and not listen to the teacher and so on. And then if you just classify him as hyperactive and put him in one of these spectrums, it's kind of, it's odd, and it can happen. The way the thing is right now is there is so much information. People then say it's hyperactive, and then they start some treatment or other. And even, there are even drugs like Ritalin, I don't know if you've heard of it, which are given to calm down kids, and people do all that. So it's a wide variety of how range of emotions in terms of how people really go about this thing.
Okay.
So, I mean, like I said, like we are just talking about exactly a good segue onto this first problem, right? Namely, where do I start, right? So I have a child who seems to have developmental disabilities. Where do I take him? Where do I go? Right now, as I said, most of the services are parents are unaware, and I describe the process, either to school or a friend who has a similar problem. Right now, people seem to know somebody or other with some kind of issue. So mostly it's word of mouth and so on. And finally they get introduced to the service coordinator. Remember, I talked to you about how the service consumption process works. So how does our app solve the problem? Just download it. So the user simply downloads it. You're seeing the bullet points, right? I mean, the way the
Yeah.
animation. Okay, because that's
Yeah.
very important. Otherwise, it's kind of a non.
No, this is good.
Yeah. So the person downloads it. App says, "How can I help you?" You say, "My child has Down syndrome. How can I get government assistance?" Okay, and the app says, "Well, based on your location, it is location aware. I can put you in touch with the service coordinator of this regional center. I can even make the appointment for you. Here are the phone numbers. Do you want me to go ahead and make an appointment because it's agentic?" And it says, "Sure, go ahead." And do I need to do anything else? And you can get them evaluated by a local psychiatrist. Here's a list of providers. So the app has knowledge of what is to be done as well. So it has a knowledge to give advice proactively. But of course, as you can guess, we cannot afford hallucinations, right? It has to be actual authentic data. So it's kind of a simplistic conversation, but in the sophisticated form of this app, people can upload photos, videos, right? And I talk later, we'll have video analysis. I mean, these are all very uh, pie in the sky kind of ideas, but these are ideas nevertheless. You can do video analysis and yourself come to conclusion on what kind of disability the person has, and today we have wearable glasses and Apple watches and so on, which can actually track them throughout their everyday life. And there is privacy issues and so on. The person has to agree to it and so on and so forth. We'll have to deal with all those. So it's a very simplistic conversation in that sense. Okay, so that's how we solve the first problem. And I don't know where to go. Download it, talk to it, get information. It'll even put you in touch. Ask it whatever you want. And the other thing is, depending on the intellectual level of the user, so it's going to adapt to the intellectual level of the user. If the user is sophisticated, then your answers will be sophisticated. Okay, if the user is not that sophisticated, then very simple. It'll learn that as you go along. It's one of the features of or features that we are planning. Again, these are all features. We don't know how difficult they are to implement. We'll talk about it later. So from this point on, the app retains all the user information, uses it as context, right? I mentioned that earlier, okay, you give the information once, it retains it. And so it is a multi-user app, support for multiple users, maintaining context over their lifetime. So this is an example of maintaining context. The user opens the app again, says, "How can I help you?" And they carry on the conversation from yesterday. My service coordinator asked me to get my child's speech evaluated. What do I do? And it says, "Oh, you should meet a speech therapist. I'll schedule an appointment." Sort of a contrived conversation, but just to give an idea. So that's how it is. So it builds on what the person has had informed before. And so it doesn't matter if it is 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, it knows the child has become older, and so it'll keep track and be an assistant, right? So here are your options. Okay. So the problem, as I said, the service consumption process is inefficient, right? Manual, and this is an actual example from my own life. I wanted to find a different adult program for my sons with open positions, right? I don't know if they have open positions. And if I go to the website, there's a list of them. I have to keep calling one by one. So one way is you ask the service coordinator and say, can you go and contact the providers and email me, email them, phone them, find openings and give me. But then I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get back. So both the caregiver and the service coordinator are calling these service providers, client contact service provider to set up appointments, and then we are evaluating the service provider. Oh, this guy is 45 miles away from our house. He's not really a fit for me. I want somebody who's closer, then etc. Right? So, and then we finally pick a service provider. Then we have to request the service coordinator to send our IPP. Remember, IPP means is a document that documents the behavioral traits, because the service provider wants to know if my son is a fit for that program. If he requires one-on-one, and the service provider doesn't provide one-on-one, then they say, oh, no, I cannot really help your son. But it's not. So they have to do an evaluation process as well. So we go through we have to set up an appointment, evaluate them, and then finally, once the vendor is chosen, as I said, they generate the payment of services. So everything has to be in place before my son can start in the program. And the whole checking process is completely email, text, and, phone tag and so on. I need to constantly check is everything is in place before the start date. So, excuse me. So how does the app solve the problem? Just ask the app, what adult programs are available for my son, and it says, I found three programs with open positions, and so on and so forth. And hopefully it also takes into account the location, and you can have a conversation about location as well, which I have not indicated here, and ask other questions as well, right? Do they support my child who has one-on-one and so on? The conversation I'm showing is pretty simplistic. It says, well, can I schedule a visit to sunrise activities? And it says, done. I've requested a tour for next Tuesday. You'll receive a confirmation text. End of story. But this requires now the provider also to use our app, right? The provider has to keep updating the list of open positions they have. So that's where the multi-role aspect of this app comes in. The provider also has to use the app. So the client, provider, and we'll soon see the service coordinator all are talking to the cloud, which we are maintaining. And so it's real-time update of what's going on there. And so it just cuts through the whole bureaucracy just like that. So, I mean, this I talked about, right? One is proactive notification. As I said, if a child goes to the next stage, new services are available. It becomes youth, 8 to 14 plus or whatever, new services are available. Becomes an adult, new services are available, right? If you're an older adult, you want living services, again, that's, so everything has its own set of providers, a lot of information about them. People have to manually navigate, find out all these things, right? So, whereas our app is going to proactively notify, and there are some examples, like I said, SSI and Medical, which is the uh, medical support provided by the government, they start becoming available when a client turns 18. Today, we have to be alert enough to find out that it is supported, and then we have to register the kid for Medical, and so on. And exercise the payment. The social security support. Not all kids have well-to-do parents. So the kid needs support in terms of financial support from the government. Exercise the financial support from the government, from the federal government. Okay. And there is food stamps and stuff like that. I haven't included them. There are many more support. Services may become unavailable. I just spoke about it. Recently, the Trump admin has been cutting funding. So you think you got your services covered, it's gone. I have no idea, and I'm going to get some letter in my mail or an email which could easily get deleted. So this app solves the problem. You open the app. You can see notification on your phone. As an important notification, you open the app and there it is. It talks to you saying, this service is not going to be available in 6 months. You could use these services instead, and so on, right? So even the service coordinator, they may leave the regional center, and you have a new service coordinator. Today again, it's by paper mail. App will tell you, new service coordinator is this. Medical tests such as TB tests, they will get, they are required to join adult programs. They expire periodically. Today we go to the adult program, find out, oh my God, my test is expired, and so we have to go run and get them redone, right? So there's plenty of examples of where proactive notification can simplify the whole service consumption and delivery process. So what does our app do? I'm taking a very simple example of this TB test expiring. So it just boom, it just gives a reminder. TB test is expiring in 14 days. You need to stay current. You need to, so it also schedule the test for you, right? So that's so we talked about the role, the provider role supported by the app. It also supports the service coordinators also, right? I mean, they are also, like we just saw, a service coordinator can leave a regional center and how am I doing on time? Okay. So, and a new one can take their place. How do they train? They're not going to know all the information overnight. And so this app can come in very handy at that level as well. Service coordinators are unbelievably overworked, right? Each one supports like 60 clients and so on. And so they can't keep up with the information. Here is an example again from my own life. I wanted to teach drum lessons for my son, hoping that will improve him. And I had to go through hoops and loop, jump through hoops rather to get approval. I call the service coordinator. They say, oh, let me look at the IPP to see if he's a fit. Once he's a fit, say, okay, let me consult with the manager, see if it is supported, and the support is denied. I just come across a Twitter message, X message from some support organization saying it's funded, and I call the service coordinator, and then after multiple meetings, emails, and so on, I actually send the information from the DDS site itself, the official site, saying here is a document that actually says it's supported, and I had to send it to the service coordinator, and finally they say, oh yeah, you're right, it is really supported. So, I mean, this is again, if the AI app were being used by the service coordinator, it's simple. She asks the app, does an adult client get financial support for learning drums? And so it says, yes, it is supported by this program, and also gives the official document. So it is giving authentic information. Remember, that's one of our requirements. It has to know whether it has authentic information or if it is really doing a web search. And in either case, it should be able to inform the client the level of trust they can place on the information. Questions, if any? I'll just pause for.
Yeah, that's an important point, Sakthi. And
correct.
maybe, like some of these LLMs do, they give little small, like citing references,
Correct.
you
Correct.
like little citations to say,
Definitely.
Here's where I got the information from, here's the link to the,
Correct.
yeah. Yeah, I
So
was just
I
wondering, because there's a lot of information that you need to harness to provide that kind of reply. Oh, Swaminathan, I think you had a question.
yeah. So I was just curious. Like, I mean, this is a pretty, pretty good idea actually, and it's very useful also. So I was
Correct.
just wondering, like, for example, if you have let's say you have a person, with some disability, and then, I mean, there may be multiple people who may be involved. Maybe the person is using, and then also there are people like his parents or probably siblings who are helping him out and all that, and they all need some kind of a context to that. Okay,
Correct.
so uh, I presume that no, they also can be taken care. Maybe do they have a single signing in kind of a thing, or no, maybe not everybody needs to get exposed to person's information completely. Some may be of different levels. So um, multiple way of interacting with the same patient with
Correct.
multiple people
Correct.
involved may be required,
Oh,
right?
correct.
So
I mean that is at the more sophisticated level. Basically, what you're saying is role-based access control for
exactly,
a specific client, right? Yes. I mean,
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, I have not listed it explicitly. There is a lot of different ways in which this can be improved. I mean, improvement-wise, there is almost no limit. Yes. I mean, you're right. I mean, if it if you can get through the first prototype, like I'm going to talk about the first prototype requirements, and then
yes,
see, the fundamental trustworthiness of this product is there. Once that is there, then all these
yeah,
other additional stuff will be definitely come into play, and we'll have to implement it. Yes, absolutely. It's a good point.
yeah, yeah.
So a
And a
single
lot of
single client being managed by multiple there is actually a term for it. It's called, oh my god, I forget the term. It's called, I forgot. There is an actual term for it. It's called support group or something like that. There's a technical term
okay,
that the regional center uses for the collection of individuals who are essentially playing a role in a client's lifetime, in a
yeah,
client's life.
yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
How long do you think you anticipate? I mean, this product, at least the prototype to be developed. I mean, you might use the AI again to develop various parts of it, right?
Correct.
So, do you have any estimate about like, because I think it's pulling up a lot of information and tying up a lot of things, like
Correct.
Dr. Bharat mentioned. So, um, like harnessing a whole lot of stuff, right? So,
Correct.
how
Correct.
long do you?
So yeah. So basically, that's why we really got restarted on this project, because I believe that I can wipe code to a prototype stage at least, so use
Uh-huh.
AI itself to code to a prototype stage itself. But that's why that's a good segue to the next segment. Basically, that's what I'm going to talk about, the prototype
Yeah,
requirements, right? So we don't want the prototype to be so similar to Gemini. The first question people are going to ask is, why can't I use Gemini? Why do I need to download your app? Or why can't I use ChatGPT, right? So it has to,
yeah,
that much differentiation has to be there at the prototype stage itself, but it cannot be so complex that we take forever, right? So that's where the next segment is, perfectly, that's a good segue actually to
yeah,
that. And so what we are aiming for is, it's completely voice driven, right? You register a user, he picks an avatar or something, and the user can interact with the voice. And as I said, no hallucination. So there is a technology where we can distinguish between, it's called RAG technology. I don't know how much people are familiar with it. I'm not a super expert either. So where you can distinguish between the authentic information and the search information. So you can say, hey, this is authentic information, this is search information, and you can actually distinguish between them. And anything from the DDS, for instance, in our case, anything from the DDS, only from the DDS or maybe from the regional center is considered authentic. Everything else is, we can have some trusted websites. We can say, hey, this is probably correct, but you need to follow up. And here I'm going to anyway schedule an appointment with the service coordinator. So those kinds of things should be there. So the second point of no hallucinations, only authentic information, we have to somehow show it to the user, right? And multiple user contexts across conversations, that's very important, right? Because if that is not there, I mean, so we should at least have a two user in being able to talk about their life at different times, and show the app is able to maintain it. Okay, and so even in Gemini and all, it's possible, but you have to go through a chat and so on. I have no idea how deeply they can maintain it. And the proactive notification is a very big differentiator in our case, right? Proactive notification. So it'll notify, this is expiring, or these services have gone away, etc. So this is a small collection of a must have requirements that I have put together for the first prototype. And I believe that, to answer Dr. Swaminathan's question, basically, I have absolutely no idea how soon I can put it through AI. and
Yeah.
we are so I'm hoping. I mean, of course, I always have a hope. I'm hoping in 1 month or so I'll have something to show. One
Yeah.
and a half months, but who knows? I mean, we also do our thing part time in the sense of we're doing spiritual stuff as well. Swamiji is going. Swamiji's tour will take some time, etc. But that's what I'm hoping. I think with AI coding and design, it could move to this level fast. So that's where the next thing comes. We have already chosen the approach. What is the platform, right? So as I said, I had been, I've been following, or this idea was way back in September 2024, right? We came up with it in September 2024. From that time onwards, I've been sort of keeping an eye on the AI platforms to see which one would be most suitable for us. And it seems to me that Gemini, at that time it was hardly any features, but now it's mature enough to support this product. And we want to go with that platform because it takes care of other issues, right? Security, safety, bias, scalability, privacy. They're really good at that. So we can focus on our core competency and leave the rest to them. And they also support this voice-based conversational agents, Gemini Live API. And they support multiple languages, which I forgot to mention. If a kid only knows Spanish, for instance, then they can converse in Spanish. It's another feature of the product. And so uh, from my evaluation, they seem to have all the features for the application. They have enough vibe coding support and so on. So that's why we are going to this. We're going to use this platform, and that's a busy system architecture slide. I'm not sure it is. I don't know how much people are going to make out of it. Essentially, this model armor is like a kind of a firewall that they have. So they have a security built in for their agent platform. And as remember, I talked about context. I don't know if I have to use a annotate or something. Anyway, I'm moving my mouse. I don't know if it is visible. The
Yeah.
bottom agent memory bank, that is where the persistent context is. Remember, I talked about context, that we have to maintain context. And so grounding queries, as I told you, there is internal data stores which are authentic, right? So they have grounding queries, and there is trusted websites like I talked about. So they seem to have, and there we have support for voice using avatars, as well as text interaction, which is an optional thing also is there. So they seem to have all the support. And this is, by the way, is an AI generated architecture slide from Gemini itself, to confess. So that's why we feel this is the way to go. We'll have to just experiment and see how fast we can get to this point. But that's where we are going. So the rest of the slide is future roadmap. I don't know, Bharat, if you want me to go over it, and we can go over it and have one recording. There are a
Sure.
few more slides, right?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like we were talking about already, right? It can start with just assistant for services, but it can be a full-fledged assistant, right? An everyday assistant, reminding the client to wake up. Some people just sleep through the whole day, because they're special needs folks. They don't understand time, a lot of stuff. It can actually be a personal assistant, not just service assistant, but a personal assistant for the everyday needs. Using, as I said in the second bullet, they have smartwatch and smart glasses and everything today. So you can have even a specialized device that can essentially be in their home, guiding them every step of the way. Or if they can wear a smartwatch or a smart glass, their activities are tracked and they can get real-time guidance. And Google, they recently announced their smart glass product and so on. So if we can time it, we could be their first we could be the guinea pig, right? And they always want some guinea pigs. So that's one thing, another reason for going the Google direction. They may not be known as a leader like Chat GPT or Anthropic, but I feel in the long run they're going to be a tough uh, competitor. So there are additional AI ML applications, right? We talked about, and this is not connected with the app, but more about the services, right? Remember, I talked about IPP, encoding behavioral traits. So today it is a PDF document. That's what it is in, and it has to be updated manually, sent via email, or actually they send it by snail mail also. So the obvious approach, and there are people working on this kind of stuff. I just found out Stanford has an entire new organization started to work on special needs stuff. So and basic thing is, now that you have LLMs which can actually parse these paper documents, you just need to stick them into into a LLM supported ML system. So it extracts the features. You can do clustering, right? Using unsupervised learning, you can cluster, and say, okay, these clients have similar characteristics, and what services are they using? Are they using the same services, or they're different services? Because today the services are allocated manually, right, by the service coordinator. Each, I might be in the Los Angeles County service coordinator, right, and I might have the same behavioral characteristics as someone in Santa Clara County, which is near the San Francisco Bay Area. And I might be getting entirely different service assignments based on the service coordinator's perception of what the behavioral traits the clients are, right? There's no standardization across the board. Whereas an ML system can say, hey, these two clients are in the same cluster in terms of their behavioral traits, they should be receiving the same services, and you can cluster the services together as well, so we can see where they are divergent, and you can track success over time. Okay, and you can give fine-grained services as well, so you can say, okay, these are, so today, it's very coarse-grained, right? They can't afford to provide very fine-grained services like, okay, these folks are good intellectually, but they can't even talk, and they are absolutely zero social skills. So this class of folks need these services, and we have enough number of people, so we can have an entire service provider dedicated for this class of people. So if there's an entire service provider dedicated for this class, obviously the coaching given is going to be much more focused, and the progress that they can make will be much more much faster, right? So applying ML to IPP is a fantastic application. Needless to say, Stanford and others have already jumped on, but they only did it in 2023, So anyway, we have time to catch up. But even otherwise, given that we are working on products for social good, no reason why we shouldn't have our own system. So again, we talked about symptom detection through video analysis, right? They can upload videos, and there's a lot of research already going on, but research is one thing, but converting into a real practical product for a narrow application like autism spectrum, it's not trivial, right? I mean, to say, hey, even if it is an aid to the, even if it's an addition to whatever the service coordinator determines, it's still a very useful thing. So these kind of products can really be of use. And so these are some of the ideas that I have for the future, but even the present is hard to accomplish. So that's the end of the talk.
Thank you, Shakti. Very, very interesting. Lot of possibilities, and it's clear that you can get to an initial prototype
Correct.
pretty soon, and that'll give a lot of motivation to kind of to proceed from there. We'll open to the audience if you'd like to ask Dr. Sakthi any questions, comments. Just
Looks like we have a new person, Dr. Nimi K. I don't know if it is.
yeah, there are.
Yeah, she's a security um, domain. Her research is focused on security.
Okay,
Maybe
I
she
didn't
can
want to
help.
embarrass anyone. Looks maybe I see only a few thumbnails. You probably are seeing many more, Bharat.
Maybe yeah. Let me just bring up the full screen
Should I
of
stop sharing? Can I stop
yeah,
sharing, or maybe we might
yeah.
want to
The
go back
stop
to some slides?
sharing. We could see the full gallery. Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, I don't need to. I was just, we started with a few people. I thought
Yeah.
that we were still in that state. Maybe it's not.
Yeah. So now you can see the full
Correct,
gallery
correct,
of
correct, correct.
people.
No problem, no
Um,
problem.
uh,
Yeah, questions, comments, criticisms,
yeah, I know
everything is accepted.
Dr. Prema has done a lot of work with
Correct.
special
So this
needs.
is slightly different from assisted educational technology. Okay, that is a very
Indeed.
competitive field. There's a ton of people working on it. So it is. I mean, we can say it is kind of related, but it's slightly
No,
different in that sense. Yeah, but she
no, I
probably knows
understand.
much more than me.
Right. Maybe, yeah, if,
Okay,
uh,
go ahead, please. Yeah.
and
So I just have one thought. I mean, this is not a question per se. So for no, I mean for doing, I mean this kind of apps, invariably we have to probably depend on one or more of those Gen AI platforms like Gemini or Anthropic or any one, and then we add some further augment the information and then do that. Is there any danger of uh, uh, Google getting the ideas that we implement, and probably because they have the whole data with them, is there a possibility that they can spin out something in future which can probably be better than our this thing? So
Correct.
that is some question invariably we have, like because we
Correct.
are using this platform augmenting some information, but they hold the entire thing. If they want to, they can, like, right?
Correct. But actually, they want people to build on their build application. They don't want to be. See,
Yeah,
they are a platform provider, right? They want to be a
right.
platform provider that can support many applications. In fact, our plan is to engage Google once we have a prototype. Then people will start
Yeah,
talking to us. Right now, nobody wants to listen to slideware, right? So
yeah,
they
sure,
will be
sure,
very, very
correct.
happy. They will be very happy to see that. So we can be an advertisement for them.
Yeah,
We have this app that our platform really supports, and it is free marketing for them, right? So what
correct,
I'm
correct.
hoping is actually have Google on our side as we go further into this, because then I mean, I'm sure, technically also we are going to have many questions that for which we may need help. So once the prototype is there and the idea is there, and we have enough
Hmm.
contacts, we can easily. I see the I see the chat from Dr. Nimi saying that she has attended my classes. I'm glad you survived. Uh, that's nice. I mean, yeah, I was actually yeah. So to answer Dr. Swaminathan's question, that's the point. I mean, they will be very happy
Yeah,
to see that their platform is being used, and they will hopefully help us move forward.
yeah. This is
Uh,
for me a general question more than like
Good
specifically.
point. Good
Yeah, go
point.
ahead. Yeah,
Good point. I mean, so there's other thing also that it is going to be more expensive, right? If you use any of these platforms, is more expensive than, say, there is open source stuff. There's something called Langsmith,
yeah.
which a real developer can use. I'm not. I mean, as I said, if you have really a person conversant, a solid developer who understands all that, perhaps you can take on that kind of platform. But for quick prototyping and getting to a point where it is a viable thing, it's best to use these platforms. And as I
Right,
said, there's a ton of
exactly.
security, scalability. Some people say, 500,000 clients. If all of them start talking at the same time, how are you going to handle it? So everybody comes at a different angle. So the
Yeah,
scalability problem, security problem, etc. We dump it on Google, and we just focus on our core
correct. Yeah,
features.
yeah.
Yes.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I'm sure
Thank you.
Dr. Shakti.
Yes, please. I'm
Um,
sure.
nice presentations.
Thank
One thing I wanted to share is there's a lot of folks here doing, quite good in agentic AI or in LLMs, etc. And so, if you like,
you.
there's potential for collaboration. And the second question is that have you are you actually working with the special services, in identifying what their needs are, maybe? Because uh, if we can do something that they are interested in, then they will help scale it. Ideally, they should want to refer it to the parents or the caregivers or the students.
Correct.
And has anything been done along those lines? If it has not, I highly recommend that we do something that the service providers also are interested in, not just and they are the means of scaling this project.
Correct. So, to answer your first question, absolutely. The purpose of this talk was to get collaboration going, and I'm hoping that youngsters. I was hoping a bunch of youngsters will join, and they will roll up their sleeves and do the coding for us because. And actually, I have been trying to recruit folks from the Bay Area as well, and I found one youngster who said, yay, I'm ready to work with you. So I actually found one youngster. So absolutely, anybody, this is project that anybody can work on, whether in India or here, it's fine. There was a chat there, but I kind of missed it. Anyway,
Dr. Sethu Madhavan
oh,
has
oh,
joined a
so
little late
pleasure, sir. He knows me better than anybody else, and
because
he also survived me.
because you taught all the courses for his
Correct, correct.
security.
Correct. So to come back, Dr. Prema's question, absolutely. This is the purpose of this presentation, to the whole audience is A, synergy, B, anybody can join and anybody can work on it. So if they're good at it, absolutely. And because we want to getting to a real working product is not easy, right? Even if we talk and say all these, finally, to get an app which actually satisfies the prototype requirements itself is not trivial. So absolutely, yes, sir. And second question. So we actually gave this presentation to the CIO, Chief Information Officer of DDS, in December 2024, and Bharat and Ramesh were also in attendance. And the feedback was positive, but he said, I can't buy directly from you. At that time, I was thinking at least to get his approval. So he was happy with it. He didn't say it's all nonsense or whatever. So again, the problem is, going and presenting slideware, right, is much more difficult than having a real app. Once we have this prototype, I have enough contacts in the Bay Area to, there are autism societies, there are organizations which are non-profit, which are groups of parents, who are very powerful. They even have the year of the president, they are that powerful, so if I can set up a meeting with them, they will just make all of that happen. But to go there, we need to have something concrete, and that's what my proposal is. Did I answer the question?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's not about them buying, but to understand what their requirements would be, because they are the service providers. And if they are providing service to their clients, or if the prototype can support them, or you can think about it even without meeting them, then when you present it to them, they would be interested in it. That's what we have found when we go to AIMS, for example.
Correct.
When we go to our hospitals, and they're also looking like, I'm doing this, and can the if they're a speech pathologist, right, I'm working with my patient on this, and maybe at home they can do what I wanted them to do, or it can monitor. So something like that also, if it is added, then they don't have to pay, but they can kind of recommend, and you're building something that's accepted. Because what I have found in the disability space is, unless you work with them, it doesn't get accepted. It's very different from any other population.
Correct. So this first version is not aimed at the provider; it's aimed at only clients. So basically, what is going to happen is, essentially, I have friends, right? I mean, I'm connected with parents who are parents of special needs children. So I've actually verbally talked about this to many of them, and pretty much everybody says, "Yeah, great idea." So it's directed at the end client, the caregiver, right? So that's the
All
first step. Pardon me?
Okay. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So, and the service coordinator can use it just for information. It may not support the role, but they can ask questions and get stuff back. So that is the level that we are thinking in terms of deployment. I mean, adding the provider role and having them, updated. That's very sophisticated. I mean, we are not going to be ready for that at least for some time. So that's the first. The first prototype is aimed at the end client and perhaps the service coordinator in a reduced fashion. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
So there is a lot. I mean, so yeah. Anyway, yeah. Go ahead. Any other questions?
Maybe Shakti, perhaps after your development of the prototype, perhaps we can have another engagement
Absolutely,
with
absolutely.
with interested people. That way, now you'll be actually showing your prototype.
For sure, man. I
You
mean,
know,
so I want to sort of do this kind of a thing. I kind of asked Bharat, about this. So yeah, of course, otherwise I don't think, we can just, a few people can just take this kind of thing forward all by themselves. Like Dr. Prema's input, is very valuable. So it's a joint effort, and anybody can participate in this project if they're interested. Now, in the age of vibe coding, I have no idea how to divvy the work because it's AI doing the coding. So, but we'll find a way. At least there is a front end voice based front end work is there. There is a back end agent based thing is there. At least from at this level. So even if we'll figure it out as we go
yeah.
along. There's nothing
So
wrong in
Shakti,
participating.
there
Yeah,
was a question from Divya. Are you aiming at text or voice-based interaction? But I think you clarified it was very much voice-based, right?
correct. Voice based. Because text, is boring, right? I mean, I want to be able to show a product that is attractive, right? When somebody uses it, they say, "Wow, I mean, this is definitely different from my Chat GPT or whatever." They do have a live mode, but you should be able to distinguish that, and otherwise, it's very difficult to move it forward.
Yeah. So Divya, it's very much voice based interaction.
Correct. Let me open the chat.
So maybe if it's okay, perhaps we can end at this point, not as a termination, but it's like the next episode will is to be scheduled. So
Exactly.
watch your local listings,
For sure.
for,
For sure. For
for
sure.
the next episode. Yeah. So okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Shakti, for the talk, and I'll be in touch, with you guys. Thank you.
And thank you all for joining. And I appreciate people taking the interest in the project
Thank
and
you.
giving their
Thank you.
input. Much appreciated.
Namah Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Namaskar.
there's another question. It is aimed at regional language styles as well. The Google supports multiple languages, real-time translation. So that's another reason why we picked Google. So there's another question on the chat. Sir, are you aiming at text or voice? Yeah, multiple language is supported. Let's see if there are any other questions. Yeah, multiple languages. Google is again the best. Of course, I'm looking at it through the US lens, where we think about Spanish and Chinese rather than Telugu and Tamil. But hopefully, they are worldwide. So if they are not doing it, we will do it.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Very nice. Thank you so much. I'll end the
Thank you.
I'll end the meeting here.